The Long Dark. I have a sentimentality reviewing this game because that was my nickname in college. The Long Dark is a survival game developed by Hinterland Studios. And speaking of survival, it was one of the few third-party survivors on Steam to make it out of early access. The game offers two distinct modes: survival, where you're just thrown in the middle of the woods with a pack of M&Ms, a GoPro, and a can-do attitude, and story mode. So, right off, let's talk about story mode. I'll be the first to admit that I didn't immediately jump into survival, and thank Christ for that. You know a game isn't fucking around when it takes you 2 different save files to get through a tutorial. I found myself scrounging up everything I could to make a fire the first night, then using all my kindling to make said fire, which had an uncanny chance of failure despite the 75 or more % factor of success. In hindsight, and about 20 minutes with a brisk jaunt down a ravine later, I realized I had already boned myself in the first 10 minutes. So, for the game's immersion of placing you in a lone dark wilderness for which you'll begin to ask yourself existential questions about the meaning of everything you've done with your life up to that point, resulting in the first of many suicides, an A+. When you start running into flashbacks on the 3rd or 4th day, I assumed the developers were going for exposition. I say assume because this is how the flashback went. A woman named Astrid walks into a hut and mumbles some cliche crap like,
"Still trying to save the world, huh?"
Somebody has to.
and
Someone who won't ask too many questions. Someone I can trust.
Wait, questions?
to which the first response from our player character is,
Astrid, are you in trouble?
See, there's that thing about no questions, remember?
There's obviously a problem between these two spaghetti people, but the game doesn't really want us to know about it immediately. It dances around the point like a stripper in a seedy bar. The philosophy, I guess, is to keep playing the game to figure out why you're playing the game. At least, the story anyways. After the plane crash, you take a few days to recover and eventually follow Astrid's trail to a local town where you try to describe her physical appearance to this blind woman.
The tan jacket, scarf with birds on it. Possibly injured.
Having encountered Grandma Death, she does the same cryptic bullshit to keep you interested.
I don't understand.
Now go!
I still don't understand.
Shh!
In all honesty, this type of storytelling doesn't make you want to get through the story, so much as it turns you into a jaded, heartless asshat. By the end of the first act, I really just wanted to find Astrid's body so I could harvest it for meat. While we're on characters, let's talk about character art. The combination of glossy cheeks and perpetually red noses make them all look a bit like a collection of drunk Rudolphs. And by the way the game starts,
Plenty of things you could be doing besides hanging out in your dad's old plane and drinking in the daytime.
Hey, we had a lot of good times in this plane. And it's under control.
maybe there's something to that. It's not really a game-breaking sort of criticism by any means. In fact, I'm sure there are those who enjoy the style being different than every other gray and brown dysentery simulator. It's unique in its own right. But for me, when I think of survival, I have a hard time envisioning it in some weird 8-bit graphic style. Meanwhile, during your journey grocery shopping for non-essential characters, it's as if the developers realized that once you get the basics down, it's really not too bad going from point A to point B. So they decide to come up with an intuitive and creative way to subtly raise the difficulty. I'm just kidding. They decide to throw 7,000 wolves at you. I was beginning to think old grandma put a sign on my back that said, "Maul me." When I go back and think about it, the story was never really that hard. It wasn't like it had an incredibly high learning curve or something. It was just that the tutorial, if that's what you could even call it, sucked frozen bear anus. If you're going to do a Dark Souls thing and just not tell me anything, then just do that next time, Hinterland Studios. No half measures. After finally decimating the local wolf population and searching for lockbox keys, I made my way out of town towards what I could only assume would be another town full of menial tasks for me to perform, when all of a sudden a bear is mauling this guy I just ran into. Fade to black, and that was it. My first thought was, holy shit, that's intense, and I assumed again that the developers to the story were just giving me a bit of a teaser trailer for the second episode, but no. When the second episode begins, you're already back at this guy's log cabin tending to his wounds. Wait a minute, Hinterland Studios. You mean to tell me that I just spent 4 hours with sweaty fingertips holding W for some old woman going to gasoline stations and banks, when something actually exciting happens, the best I get is a fade to black? Overall, I find myself thinking and writing the same dribble I write to other budding novelists and storytellers. Your story is rough around the edges, but it has potential, which is a nice way of saying, maybe you should consider a different profession. I've heard prostitution is all the rage these days. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's talk about survival. Here are a few things I noticed. Survival mode comes with 7 different map choices, as well as a randomizer if you just want that special something something to mix up your sex life. You can also choose to be a man or a woman in your survival run, so, you know me, I chose the woman so I could see that 8-pixel booty shake. There's actually no third person at all. Sometimes I just like to wear dresses when no one's looking. Harvesting meat from dead carcasses is the fastest way to freeze to death, it seems. There's no option to drag the bodies indoors, but I suppose showing up in someone's house wearing a severed deer head and or body might leave stains on their favorite carpeting. Optional DLC idea. Make it so the player character can carve out the inside of a bear and hibernate for the winter like a tauntaun. Hunting is a bit difficult until you find a rifle, which you have the equivalent chance of finding as starting up a successful YouTube channel. Here's some footage of me trying to murder a rabbit with a stone for 10 minutes. Ultimately though, survival mode is where this game shines. I haven't even really gone in depth yet with the intricate system that the Long Dark uses. It's based on a caloric chart where every one of your actions costs energy and time. Think of it as an Excel spreadsheet, but if you fuck up your inputs, you die. You begin to wonder whether or not breaking down a box is worth the effort if it means that it'll take you 30 minutes while the sun's setting. Oh, and you don't have a stable light source yet other than matches. But wait, you need those to start a fire at the end of the day so you don't freeze to death. Did I mention that you were trying to break those previously mentioned boxes so that you could fuel a fire long enough in the night that you don't die from hypothermia? I've never played another game that so efficiently encapsulated basic needs. You only need to worry about 4 things: your temperature, food, water, and sleep. But you'd never be able to guess just how complicated fulfilling each one of these becomes when you're in the middle of the tundra. When I play other RPGs after playing this game, I find myself getting bored with whatever hardcore survival mode it offers. It just simply pales in comparison to the Long Darks. As far as other AAA games are concerned, or at least the ones that implement a survival option, they should be looking at the Long Dark for inspiration, because they did it right. A pretty boring and disappointing story so far, but a well thought out and delivered survival mode earned this game a 3
All I've found are wolves, bad weather, and an empty town.
out of 5.
What?
Thought so.
Hey everyone, this is my first video on YouTube ever, so if you enjoyed it I would really like it if you gave me a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.